Hey pilots, Plasma 1945, a quick video for you. We're going to look here at Ukraine, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because there is a lot of rumors going around about a potential shoot down of a Russian A-50 AWACS aircraft over the Sea of Azov, and the Sea of Azov is right here. Let me just bring up the slightly more zoomed in version of this map with a quick border I drew. Again, ballpark border. This video is not about politics. This war sucks. But this is purely from a technical perspective. The Sea of Azov is right here. And let me just put a bit of a quick pen here. So this is the Sea of Azov. It's basically controlled by the Russians on both sides, from Crimea from the east, which is Russian Federation, and the west, the Ukrainian territory where the war, special operation, however you want to call it, the tragedies going on. Now, from the information that's been posted is there were AWAC tracks right here, and for those of you who fly in DCS or know about airplanes, an AWACS track is basically a orbit, a circle that a large aircraft flies. And what the AWACS does is it's got a big radar with a very long range and can stay up in this orbit for a good 8 to 10 hours. And all it's doing is just doing circles. And while it's doing circles, its radar is basically looking for a very, very big distance out into the airspace all around it. So the AWACS is doing its spins here, and its radar is looking all the way in this area. Because the AWACS plane is high up in the air, it's basically scanning and looking for what's happening in the air. Now, the range at which this AWACS could have been hit would probably look like a shot from somewhere out here, which is a solid 100 plus kilometers. That's a 60-mile shot. It is somewhat unlikely that a shot like that could come from a system such as an S-300. An S-200 could do it. An S-300 or a Patriot system could also take a shot. It is sort of the outer range of capability. So the question that comes in is, did we get a first kill by an F? Well, first off, was there even a splash? We know that there was an IL-18, codename Coot, which was also flying in this area, and he was able to RTB to a base in Russia with significant damage. I'll put that up on the screen here. So we can definitely see on its tail stabilizer that there's holes from what looks like a SAM missile that detonated near the aircraft and sent shrapnel through the tail section of the aircraft. Again, I'm not taking sides here. The war sucks. The war really sucks. I'm more concerned about the pilots and that everybody stays alive. If this war is going to continue, hopefully it'll end soon, but all I care about is that the people survive and that there's no deaths. So yeah, don't make this political, guys, in comments. But yeah, that's the situation. So there was definitely a hit on the transport aircraft. The question is that the only aircraft? Was there an A-50 here? There's still no confirmation from the Russian Federation if an A-50 indeed was involved and was shot down. Now, that range of 100 kilometers is fairly significant because, remember, a missile has to first take off from the ground, fly through the air for a significant distance before it can hit the aircraft. This is kind of the outline of the Kerch Azov area, and then we've got the Sea of Azov right here. That's this thing here, right? So let's say that the border with Ukraine, and well, let's correctly say this: the demarcation border between the Ukrainian and Russian forces is, let's say, out here. The AWACS is positioned out here. So between here and here, we've got a solid 100 kilometers. For a missile to take a shot at an AWACS that's flying up high would be a bit of it would be a hell of a shot. So the AWACS is doing his circles up here. He's just flying in circles and scanning the territory. a missile shot would need to basically do something along the following lines. So let's say they bring the Patriot S-300 right to the border and take a shot. Well, the missile would need to fly up and basically hit that target in a fairly aggressive fashion. So the missile will boost up to an altitude, and then it would need to basically find the target and hit it. Now, the important thing to keep in mind, the airplane has engines, so you can keep flying all the time. The missile, on the other hand, as it's flying up here, its motor only burns for the first 30, 60 seconds. So right here, the missile is just basically flying on the energy it has built up. Its motor is only burning on the way up. And again, forgive my crappy drawing here. But, you know, there's the motor. You fire the missile. It burns, 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 burns. Right around here, the motor is going to turn off. And the missile is basically cruising. So it is fairly easy to avoid it. The missile is fast at this point. It could easily be Mach 4 plus. But the further it has to go, the more energy it'll lose, the easier it is to defend. I have a Russian audio communication that was also intercepted. I'm not sure if it's real or not, but there is a specification from the pilots as follows. And I'll play that audio recording here at the end. It's apparently from an SE-35 or an SE-34, where they're reporting a large stick traveling at Mach 3, 3.6 next to them. So that could have been a SAM launch, but again, we don't know. The fact that the IL-18 got hit, that's clear evidence that there was damage. The other possibility that is a little bit easier possibly to do is if, well, I'm going to draw a blue plane here. So this is our F-16. If an F-16 can climb up to altitude and then take a shot, that could also work. But this would be, again, one hell of a shot. Watch my DCS video for long-range shots. I mean, 60 miles plus. And to take that shot, that F-16 has to be at like flight level 40. He's got to be really high up. And if the Red Force didn't notice an F-16 climbing to that altitude and try to take him out with like an R-37 or an R-77, okay, that's possible, but it's unlikely. And the other reason that it's unlikely is because the Russians will also have their SAM defense network on their side of the border. So this is the Russian territory that's held by the Russians. This is the Ukrainian territory. This is all, of course, in former Ukrainian territory. But the Russian SAMs should be able to target anything that's flying around as well. If not hit them, at least push them away. So was it an F-16 that could have done this? Unlikely, unless the Russians were really not paying attention to their skies. Was it a missile? Possibly, but less likely. What I'm going to assume is if indeed an A-50 got taken out and that IL-18 definitely shows signs of damage, I would guess that it was a maybe friendly fire. And based on the damage that we can see, it was a fragmentation warhead, not an expanding rod warhead, so it's likely a SAM missile, not a air-to-air missile, because air-to-air missiles usually fire expanding warheads. Expanding warheads is basically, let's start again here. If we have a missile, right, you can have, and here's your missile, here's its warhead. The seeker is actually up in the front. The actual warhead is kind of a little bit in the back here, because here's usually the radar or the sensor to track the target. And your warhead is usually either an expanding rod warhead, or you could also have a fragmentation warhead. Now, fragmentation is like a grenade. Basically, it's little pieces of ball bearings, shrapnel, or whatever that just explode in every direction, making lots of holes as this thing explodes. An expanding rod warhead is if you take a bunch of steel rods that are very thin and glue them at the top to each other and then roll them into a tube. So from the side, they literally look like rods like this. And they connect like that at the top and bottom to each other. So when you detonate the explosive in the center of the expanding rod warhead, it'll push them out, giving them a shape that kind of looks like, I guess from the top, I was trying to remember how these are usually drawn, but when the explosion goes off, the rods kind of look like this as they fly out from the center of the explosion. So there's your explosion, boom, and these metal rods basically split out in every direction, and they fly through and they cut airplane parts off. Shrapnel is more commonly used on SAMs. Expanding rods are more commonly used on air-to-air missiles, but not necessarily. So anyhow, the fact that we can see the damage that looks like shrapnel, I'm going to guess it was a SAM, not a air-to-air missile. And again, that's just my thoughts on what's happening. We still don't have any information from the Russian Ministry of Defense. I don't think we're going to get it. Definitely an IL-18 cargo plane got hit, but did an A-50 go down, which is a very expensive, very precious aircraft for the Russian VVS Air Force? That's a different question. Maybe we'll know more in the future. On that note, Plasma 1945 is out of here. Fly safe, everyone. And again, peace must prevail. People can't keep dying in this crazy war. And, yeah. Anyway, Plasma 1945 out of here.